David Miller had been driving for nearly 10 hours through the endless Nevada desert. The cracked asphalt stretched straight into the horizon, heat waves making the distant mountains shimmer like a mirage. His phone had no signal, GPS flickered on and off, and the only sound was the low hum of his old truck engine. He wasn't sure what he was running from, a failed marriage, a dead-end job, or maybe just the weight of his own thoughts. All he wanted was silence, a place where he could think without interruption. As the gaslight flickered red, a faded wooden sign appeared, half buried in sand. "Welcome to Clearwater, home of good coffee and good people." A small ironic smile crossed David's face. Coffee sounded perfect. He drove slowly into the town, noticing immediately that something felt off. The streets were unnaturally clean, cars parked perfectly, lights on in every building, but there were no people, not a single soul, no children playing, no shopkeepers sweeping, not even birds singing. The silence was oppressive, like the town itself was holding its breath. David parked outside a small diner called Maggie's Morning Brew. The bell jingled as he pushed open the door. The smell hit him instantly. Fresh coffee. Cups sat on the counter, steam curling lazily from each one. A newspaper lay open on a booth, the date just a week old. A plate of pie sat half-eaten, fork balanced perfectly on the plate. Everything looked normal, too normal. "Hello?" David called out. His voice echoed off the walls. No answer. He walked behind the counter. The coffee pot was still steaming, warm to the touch. Whoever had made it had done so minutes ago. His eyes fell on the radio on the wall, crackling softly. A faint song drifted through the diner, something old from the 1940s. "I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places." He turned toward it. The music stopped. Silence returned, heavier this time. He stepped outside, scanning the street. Across the road, a small grocery store had its door slightly open, lights on inside. He entered, and it was the same. Stocked shelves, registers open, a ceiling fan spinning lazily, but no one inside. His calls echoed back to him unanswered. Then he noticed a coffee cup on the aisle floor, steam rising faintly. He bent down. The liquid was icy cold. A reflection appeared in its surface, not his own. Someone was standing behind him. He spun around. Nothing. Every window on the street now reflected shadows that didn't belong to him. His heartbeat quickened. The diner bell jingled again. The coffee pot still steaming. Slowly, cautiously, he took a sip. Warm, comforting, delicious. The floor beneath him shivered, not an earthquake, a subtle vibration, like the heartbeat of the town itself. A tall figure appeared in the far corner, blurred in the sunlight, motionless, watching. He backed out. The street seemed to stretch unnaturally, alleyways lengthening, buildings subtly shifting. A child's laughter echoed from nowhere, high-pitched, fleeting. He spun. Nothing. He ran to the diner again. Cups rattled. Steam rose unnaturally. A handprint appeared on the counter, tall, wet, fading. The radio hissed. "You shouldn't be here. Stay with us." The jukebox clicked on by itself, glowing faintly. David's vision blurred. Music echoed like a heartbeat through the diner. He realized then the truth. The town wasn't abandoned. He was trapped. The town was alive.
David stumbled out of the diner, heart pounding, every nerve screaming that something was very wrong. The streets of Clearwater stretched out before him, sun casting long, strange shadows that didn't match the shapes of the buildings. He tried to make sense of it. How could a town look so alive, lights on, coffee brewing, windows spotless, and yet not a single person be there? He moved down Main Street cautiously, every step echoing unnaturally. The barber shop was open, chairs aligned, mirrors spotless, but empty. Registers were unlocked, cash trays pulled out. He called again, his voice bouncing back at him, warped, like it had been twisted by the walls themselves. Then he noticed movement in the reflections of the windows, shadows shifting behind him, but every time he spun around, nothing. The street appeared empty, normal, except it wasn't. He could feel it watching him. A low hum began under his feet, subtle at first, almost like a heartbeat, but it grew steadily. David's pulse quickened in response. The ground didn't quake, but the vibration was undeniable. The town itself seemed alive, breathing, pulsing, learning him. He ran toward the small town square, hoping for something, anyone, some explanation. The fountain in the center trickled normally, sunlight glinting off the water. But when he leaned over to look, the reflection showed figures standing just behind him. Again, he spun. Nothing. A cafe he had passed earlier called Sunny Beans suddenly had its door open wider than before. He approached, noticing the smell of fresh pastries and coffee. He reached out, touching the door handle. Cold. He stepped inside. The place was immaculate. Tables neatly arranged, chairs pushed in, pastries untouched. But in the corner, a chair rocked slowly. No wind. No one around. His phone buzzed briefly, weak signal. A message flashed. Leave. You are not welcome. The phone died instantly. David's panic escalated. Every alley, every streetlight, every window reflection seemed to stretch reality. Buildings twisted subtly when he wasn't looking at them directly. Alleyways lengthened. Shadows moved independently of their objects. He realized with growing terror, the town was manipulating him, observing every movement, every thought. From the corner of his vision, a movement. A figure standing motionless near the fountain. Tall, indistinct, featureless. David froze. The figure didn't move, didn't breathe, but he could feel its gaze pierce his mind. He ran back toward the diner, hoping for a place of familiarity. Cups rattled on the counter. Steam rose unnaturally. The jukebox in the corner clicked on, playing a distorted version of the 1940s tune. The words seemed to morph into whispers. You belong here. Stay. Never leave. David grabbed his jacket, bolted out of the diner, only to find the streets now rearranged. The buildings were closer, the alleys longer. Every exit he tried led him back to the diner. The town wasn't just alive, it was trapping him, feeding off his fear, and somehow learning him with every heartbeat. A soft voice drifted across the street. Not coming from anyone, not audible physically, yet he heard it clearly. We've been waiting for you. David spun around searching, but no one was there. Every window now reflected multiple figures, pale, tall, featureless, watching him. He stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a small coffee cup that had appeared in the middle of the street. Steam rose from it, curling like smoke. The ground shivered beneath his feet again. The sound of faint laughter echoed from nowhere, high-pitched, fleeting. A clock tower in the center of town struck 3, even though it had been stuck at noon moments ago. He watched in horror as the bell's shadow stretched unnaturally across the street. David realized the truth. Clearwater wasn't abandoned. It was alive, conscious, and now it had him. He was not a visitor anymore. He was a participant in its endless game, a character in its story, unable to leave.
David ran blindly through the streets of Clearwater, every step echoing unnaturally, every shadow seeming to stretch toward him. He didn't know how long he had been running. Minutes, hours, maybe longer. The town's layout had shifted again. Streets looped back on themselves. Alleyways lengthened impossibly, and buildings seemed subtly distorted when he looked away. Panic clawed at his chest, his mind screaming for escape, but the town refused to let him go.
He spotted a small inn at the edge of town. Its sign read, "Clearwater Inn, rooms available." The glow of its windows seemed inviting, almost reassuring. David sprinted toward it, hoping for a safe refuge, some semblance of normalcy. Inside, the inn was eerily quiet. The hallway stretched longer than it should, doors lining both sides like an endless corridor. Each door he passed opened to empty rooms, perfectly maintained, yet entirely devoid of life. In one room, a bed was neatly made, a mug of fresh coffee steaming on the nightstand. David approached cautiously. He touched the mug, icy cold. A mirror on the wall reflected a figure lying in the bed. David froze. The figure wasn't moving, and yet he could feel it watching him. The reflection didn't match reality. The room was empty. Footsteps echoed somewhere down the hallway. David spun toward the sound. The hallway was empty, yet the sound persisted, soft, deliberate, circling him. His pulse quickened, adrenaline burning through his veins. He ran down the hall, every door he passed slamming shut behind him, as if the inn itself were alive, reshaping itself. A voice, soft and whispering, carried down the hallway. "You belong here now." David stumbled into another room. The walls were covered in faded photographs, families, townspeople, smiling faces, yet the faces were blurred, indistinct. Each photograph seemed to watch him, shifting subtly when he glanced away. He backed toward the door. It slammed shut on its own. Desperate, he tried another room. This one had a desk with papers scattered across it. Headlines screamed of tragedies he didn't recognize, missing persons, accidents, disappearances, all local, all recent, yet somehow familiar. He realized with growing terror that the town had chronicled every visitor, every soul who had entered before him. The door slammed behind him. He spun. Shadows moved across the walls, flickering in and out of existence. The mug of coffee on the desk steamed again. He reached for it, and the steam formed a shape, tall, faceless, watching him. He recoiled. From somewhere above, the inn groaned as if sighing. A clock struck, 3 o'clock, but the hand spun backward rapidly, then froze. David realized time itself was unstable here. Seconds stretched, warped, looping unnaturally. A whisper echoed directly in his mind. "The town waits, and we are patient." David fled down the hall, trying every door. Each opened to another corridor, leading him back to the same room, the same steaming mug, the same reflection of someone who wasn't there. He was caught in an infinite loop, the inn reshaping itself endlessly, feeding on his fear. His vision blurred, the walls seemed to pulse. The air smelled faintly of coffee, bread, and something metallic, coppery. He sank to the floor, shaking, realizing that the town wasn't just alive. It thought, it remembered, and now it was integrating him into its pattern. Every sound, every reflection, every subtle shift in the air was a signal, a message from the town. He understood with chilling clarity. He would never leave. He would become part of Clearwater, just like all the others before him, trapped forever in its empty streets, its perfect facades, its steaming coffee.
David collapsed to the floor of the inn hallway, gasping, every muscle trembling. The walls pulsed faintly, shadows twisting unnaturally, and the air smelled of coffee, damp wood, and something metallic, sharp. He didn't know how long he had been running, how long he had been trapped in this endless loop of hallways and rooms, each mirroring the last, each mocking him with glimpses of impossible reflections. He stumbled to his feet, desperate, and ran toward what he thought was the exit. The door he remembered seeing before was no longer there. Instead, another hallway stretched out, longer, darker, twisting impossibly. Each step echoed louder than the last, a hollow sound that seemed to reverberate inside his skull. The inn groaned. A faint whisper drifted through the air.
The coffee was hot when you arrived. Now it's boiling over with something darker. David's eyes fell on a room at the end of the hall. Its door was slightly ajar, a warm golden light spilling out. He pushed it open and froze. Inside, the room was perfect. A bed neatly made, a steaming cup of coffee on the nightstand, photographs on the walls, smiling faces, blurred but familiar. And in the center of the room, a tall figure stood, featureless, faceless, watching. He tried to back away. The door slammed shut behind him. He reached for the cup. Steam curled from its surface, forming shapes, fleeting faces, hands, eyes that blinked and vanished. He lifted the cup to drink, compelled by some terrible fascination, and the room shifted around him. The walls melted into shadows. The ceiling stretched impossibly high. Every photograph on the wall twisted into the reflection of someone else. All the people who had ever entered Clearwater, all the souls it had trapped over the decades. They stared at him silently, faceless but present, their anguish palpable. The faceless figure moved toward him, not fast, not slow, but with inevitability. David stumbled backward, tripping over the rug. The cup fell, spilling coffee that steamed unnaturally, forming more faces, more whispers. "Welcome home." The words echoed in his mind as the faceless figure reached toward him. He tried to scream, tried to fight, but his limbs refused to obey. The room stretched, warped, and time itself seemed to shadow. David's vision blurred. Suddenly, he was standing outside again. The town of Clearwater lay before him, sun shining, streets clean, buildings perfect. A sign welcomed him. Home of good coffee and good people. He looked around, hoping, praying for escape. The streets were empty. The diner's doors swung gently in the breeze. The aroma of coffee floated in the air. He stepped forward cautiously. A cup sat on the counter, steaming. He reached for it. And in that moment, he understood. He was no longer a visitor. He had become part of the town. The town had claimed him. Every fear, every heartbeat, every thought had been absorbed, woven into its endless pattern. A shadow passed behind him in the reflection of the diner window. He turned. No one was there. And yet, he felt them watching, always watching. The coffee was still hot. The streets whispered. The windows flickered. The buildings pulsed alive. And somewhere, inside the walls of Clearwater, David Miller's reflection appeared in every window, every mirror, silent, faceless, waiting.